Councillor Cressy to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. This has been one of the hardest debates in my first term that I've been here for. And I find as a debate, it's been one that perhaps more than any other debate we've had provides real insight into who each of us are in this chamber, as well as insight into who the city is. And I want to say and acknowledge that it's a debate that's harder still, because as we have this discussion, it's with the understanding that our council doesn't in any way reflect the diversity of the city we represent. That as we have this discussion about inclusion and exclusion, we are a council made up of individuals who do not represent that city when you put us up in front of a mirror or take a photograph of us. And I desperately want to live in a city where everybody, absolutely everybody, feels welcome and feels included. I want to live in a city where Black Torontonians, where trans Torontonians, where Indigenous Torontonians, where all Torontonians can march and feel safe marching alongside the men and women in uniform. I want to live in that city. That is not the city that we live in. That is not the city that we represent. Councillor Mihevc talked about his background and his privilege. Listen, I'm a straight white kid from the Annex. My two parents were councillors. I mean, privilege. Look at me. How can I, with my experience, understand what it's like for a black youth or a trans youth to march alongside a police officer? I can't. I want to listen to their voices. That's who I'm listening to. And so there's a lot of discussion on that basis of inclusion and definitions of inclusion. And there's discussion of the city's motto, that diversity is our strength. Diversity is simply a fact. That's all diversity is. Inclusion is a choice. Inclusion is about how you feel. Inclusion, as Councillor Shan said so perfectly, is when barriers don't exist to allow you to be there. And inclusion cannot be dictated down. You cannot tell people to feel welcome somewhere. You either feel welcome there or you don't. And Councillor Campbell's motion will make people feel unwelcome. Inclusion is also a journey. And if we want to foster inclusion, then we need to encourage people to talk, to listen, and understand each other. Right now, the city's doing that work. Executive Director of STFA, Chris Brillinger, and his team are working right now with the mayor on anti-black racism. And they talk about the importance of building trust and listening to each other and not imposing decisions on others. And so a couple years ago, I was at Pride. The Reverend Brent Hawkes was there, and I was at the church service before, and he spoke of, look how far we've come. Premier Wynne, the mayor, the leaders of 2 federal parties, look how far we've come from a protest march in 1981 to a celebration with more than 1 million people in the streets every year on Pride. Look how far. But then you listen to black youth, you listen to trans youth, you listen to others, and you realize that that journey to inclusion is not, it's a much longer walk, and we are not there yet. We're not. And so that work continues. And so as we have this debate, ultimately, what do you, I would ask each of you, what do you want out of this debate? What do you want out of Pride? For some, I suspect, and they don't say it, but I suspect there are some here who just don't like Pride. This debate is endless. In the late 1990s, people said we shouldn't fund Pride because of nudity. Last term, it was said we shouldn't fund Pride because of Quia. Today, we're being told we shouldn't fund Pride because of police participation. Somehow, Pride is always held to a completely different standard than every single organization we fund in the city. Nobody's talking about the Symphony or the AGO or what their policies are, but every term, since my father was a councillor and the bathhouse raids took place, every term we talk about some reason why we shouldn't fund Pride. And for others, and I say this genuinely, for others who want to see police in uniform march, and I believe that Councillor Campbell wants to see them march for the right reasons, and I was very taken with former officer for Councillor Burnside's comments. I really was, about individual rights. The best thing you can do if you want police to march is to let Pride and the police work together and sort it out. Because imposing it on them, I'll tell you what, you're going to make things worse, not better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.